Have you ever wondered how early humans slept during those brutal winters tens of thousands of years ago, when snow smothered the earth and the cold felt sharp enough to bite through skin? The strange thing is, they didn't just survive. They slept surprisingly warm, surprisingly deep, and surprisingly peacefully inside the dark stone caves they called home. And tonight, you're going to step right into that world. Imagine you're standing at the mouth of an ancient cave, winter wind cutting across your shoulders. But inside, there's a different kind of warmth waiting for you, the soft flicker of firelight, the familiar scent of smoke, the steady drip of water like a lullaby, and the slow, peaceful breathing of the people who once slept here, thousands of years before you were born. For the next 3 hours, you won't just hear a history story. You'll feel the rhythm of an older world, slower, deeper, strangely soothing. A journey that lets your body soften, your mind settle, and your eyes grow heavy with each fading ember. If you're ready for the warmest winter sleep you've had in a long time, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe, and join me for this story. Now, then let's begin. Let your shoulders relax for a moment and imagine yourself standing in the middle of a winter afternoon from a distant age back when humans had no houses, no electric lights, no comforts to ease the weight of growing old. It was just you, the natural world, and your own breath to keep you warm. As you step into that moment, winter is just cold air. It feels like a long, heavy trial, almost as if the earth and sky wanted to test how patient you could be, how devoted you were to protecting your own life. Under a sky grayed like it's been washed in thin lead, the wind whistles in sharp waves, sweeping straight across the ground blanketed with thick snow. You hear that wind like the weary sigh of an ancient world, a deep, icy breath that seems to reach all the way into your bones. In that instant, you can clearly see your breath rising into pale plumes that fade slowly into the air. Every inhale feels like your lungs compress in pain. Every exhale turns to frost right in front of your face. Your skin stings with a raw, biting ache, the unmistakable pain of survival. Your body moves slowly, heavily, as if you were carrying the entire winter on your back. This right here is where early humans once stood, not with supplies, not with thick clothing, but with instinct and hope. Winter back then was far more brutal. Food was scarce. The daylight was short, and the darkness stretched out like a quiet but stern warning. This was the time when predators became more active. They prowled, searching for the scent of weakened creatures. And you, with tired legs and a chilled body, find yourself in the very same position your ancestors knew too well. In that situation, one need becomes painfully obvious, urgent, and simple. You must find shelter, not for comfort, but for survival. Before the night swallows everything, before the cold seeps into every fiber of your being, you need a place the wind can't reach, a place where winter's howl stays outside. You look around and see only faint outlines of rocky ridges in the icy mist. The world now holds no bright colors, only muted tones. Slow shades, like an old painting someone might hang in their living room, the kind of picture that makes older folks fall silent, remembering the past. And in that painting-like world, you suddenly notice a small dark spot halfway up a rock wall. Not a house, nothing so safe. Just the opening of a cave, a mouth of shadow inviting you in. You have no idea what's inside, no idea whether it's safe. But still, your feet move toward it slow, steady, hopeful. That fragile mix of danger and hope was something our ancestors felt 1,000 times over whenever winter came. As you draw closer, the wind pounds against your back. urging you onward. Every step leaves a deep imprint in the snow. The snow is soft, quiet, almost understanding of what you're going through. You lower your hand, touch the cold stone, and step into the darkness. And the moment you cross that small threshold, you notice something instantly. The wind stops screaming. Not completely, but its voice suddenly muffles, locked outside. The sharp, knife-like cold eases just a little. A gentle silence settles in enough to slow your heartbeat. The temperature in the cave is steadier. Not warm, not cozy, but no longer the kind of cold that slices through your veins. You feel yourself being held by the stone, this seemingly lifeless material that somehow protected human warmth through the longest nights in our history. This is that uncanny moment. Archaeologists always talk about a cave isn't just a shelter. It's the boundary of safety. Outside blizzards, wild beasts, darkness, inside warmth, hope, and sometimes an entire community waiting for one another. If you stay quiet for a bit longer, everything begins making sense. Early humans didn't choose caves by accident. They chose them because it was the only way to care for one another, to let parents keep their children warm, to let the elderly sleep in peace, to allow someone to exhale softly without the wind cutting into their lungs. Standing in that cave, the feeling becomes incredibly real. You realize that life has never been guaranteed. It's the outcome of countless small decisions, slow steps, and breaths protected with care. And in that moment, you understand why our ancestors survived winter. Not because they were strong, but because they were patient, connected, and driven by the desire to find a place to rest. That spirit lives in you, in all of us, even though the times have changed. You take a deep, slow breath, then let it out, as if you're sharing your rhythm with generations long before you. And from that quiet cave entrance, you begin to sense the next part of the story of firelight, the smell of smoke, the drip of water drawing closer to you, as if they're waiting for you to step into the next chapter of this ancient journey. And as you stand right there at the mouth of that cave, your breath still carrying the faint chill of the wind behind you, you realize you're about to step from a world of storms into something entirely different, a place our ancestors once considered the safest part of their lives during the long winter months. You lean your body slightly, then step inside. Just one step yet. It feels like you're moving from an endless blizzard into a gentle hush, like crossing from a wind-swept road into the warm porch your parents used to call you toward on the first snowy day of the season. A sudden silence wraps around you, not the kind that scares you, the kind that makes your shoulders drop on their own, without thinking. Outside, the wind still roars in long, furious streaks, but the sound is now blocked by layers of stone that have stood there for thousands of years, a kind of heaven's doorway, carved by nature to shield the small, fragile beings who knew how to seek refuge. Inside the cave, the cold is still there, but no longer sharp like a blade. Out there, the chill sliced straight into your skin. In here, it's more like a thin mist, brushing lightly across your face. It wakes you up a little, but it doesn't make you tremble with fear. You can feel the shift clearly, harsh outside, soft inside. A simple boundary, yet one that meant survival. As you stand still, letting your ears adjust to these new sounds, you hear your own body more clearly, your heartbeat, your breathing, the faint echo of your footsteps on the damp ground. All of it blends together into a strangely comforting stillness, like finding a familiar room after a long, exhausting journey. A place where time slows down, just enough to let you rest. The people of the past understood that caves weren't just places to hide from the wind. They held a stable temperature all year round, whether summer scorched the land or winter froze everything in sight. A gift from nature to those patient enough to search for it. The temperature inside only shifted slightly, and that small, steady range was what allowed humans to relax for the first time after hours of fighting brutal cold. You feel it on your skin now, warm enough that you're not shaking, steady enough that you no longer have to brace yourself for each gust of wind. Our ancestors once found life in this exact simplicity, a small pocket of stability in a world that was constantly shifting. And as the cold softens, your mind begins to soften too. The tension that stretched tight as a bowstring when you were out there slowly loosens. It's a natural response when your body enters a space where danger can't reach so easily. A cave with its stone walls and its darkness somehow gives you a rough, honest kind of embrace. Like walking into your childhood kitchen, where your grandmother would be drying a pair of gloves near the fire you feel held. No one says anything, yet the space itself speaks. You're safe now. You can breathe a little deeper. You place your palm against the cave wall. The surface is cold, rough, but it carries a steady weight that softens you from the inside. This material, which seems so lifeless, once protected countless generations of humans through blizzards, through endless nights, through months of scarce food. Stone doesn't speak, but stone knows how to hold warmth. Stone can't hug you, but what you feel right now almost feels like being hugged. Outside, the blizzard is still chasing whatever scraps of daylight remain. The wind no longer sounds sharp, but it hums faintly, like a distant sigh from winter itself. You know that if you stepped outside for just a few more seconds, your body would start trembling again. But here in this gentle shadow, you're allowed to rest. The contrast is so stark you can feel it physically. Out there, white, gray, wild. In here, deep brown, calm, grounded. Two worlds separated by a single step, yet divided by the difference between exhaustion and recovery, between anxiety and peace. Right at this border, early humans truly understood the value of shelter, not just to survive, but to reclaim their calm after a long battle with nature. You take a slow breath, then let it drift into the darkness. In that breath, you feel closer to your ancestors than ever. They once stood here too, laying their hands on the stone, exhaling warm air, grateful to have found a safe place for the night. And right at this threshold, they began building life inside the cave where firelight would glow, where smoke would drift upward, where people slept, huddled close, the very world you're about to step into with them. And as you listen more carefully, you realize, from deep inside the cave, a warm tone begins to echo outward, like a gentle invitation. The fire is waiting for you, the heart of winter nights that our ancestors once relied on. And as you walk a few steps deeper, leaving the sound of the wind behind at the cave's entrance, you begin to realize that this place isn't just a shelter. It's a space that once held an entire life, a quiet rhythm of human existence long ago. The area before you opens up like an ancient book, its pages still layered with the dust of time, silent yet full of stories waiting to be told. The faint light from the cave's opening shines just enough for you to see a thick layer of ash spread across the ground like a thin gray blanket left behind by countless generations. The ash is brittle, light, and when you crouch down to touch it, it feels strangely soft, as though you're brushing against the last bit of warmth from some distant night's fire. You realize this ash isn't here by accident. It came from thousands of fires lit and extinguished, from the hands that once trembled in the cold, yet patiently kept the flames alive. Hands much like yours, searching for warmth to sleep through the night in peace. Beside that layer of ash are soot stains clinging to the cave walls. Soft black streaks like nature's own paintbrush strokes, rising from low to high. You touch them, and the surface feels lightly gritty, leaving a trace of black dust on your fingertips. But this soot isn't dirty. It's more like an ancient signature, a testimony that humans lived here, warmed themselves here, existed here. You step a little farther inside, and your eyes land on a broken stone tool, a sharp piece of rock once shaped with care, now lying still as if waiting for someone to pick it up and finish the task it was meant for. You imagine a man from long ago sitting beside the fire, using that tool to scrape game meat or split straw for bedding. Maybe it slipped from his hand after exhaustion, overtook him, and he drifted into sleep, the deep kind of sleep that comes in the middle of winter. Nearby are pieces of broken bone. They don't feel frightening instead. They hint at the simplicity of early life humans hunting, sharing food, making use of every resource to survive. You look at those fragments the way you might look at the remains of a family meal from ages past, where adults divided meat for the children, where faint laughter echoed in the dark, where the cold stepped back for a moment. And then your mind begins weaving stories. Not stories to excite your imagination. Stories that make your heart feel closer to the souls who once lived here. You picture children playing in a corner of the cave, bare feet on the cold ground, tiny hands sifting through ash and stones, their laughter clear and light, the warmth of their little bodies softening the heavy air of winter. You see adults tending the fire, their motions slow and steady, much like the way elders today rekindle embers in a fireplace on winter evenings. They lean down, blow gently, watching each spark with careful eyes until the flame grows into a glowing circle of light. They did this not only to stay warm, but to create rhythm, a sense of time that told everyone when to rest, when to eat, when to settle into silence and sleep. Across the way, you can imagine a woman preparing game meat, her hands skilled, rugged but warm. She cuts, rinses, smokes all through movements passed down from generations before her. In that moment, you understand something simple. Everything they did had purpose to preserve warmth, to preserve strength, to preserve one another. These imagined scenes don't wake you up. They slow you down. They soften you. Because you begin to understand that this once was a home, not built from wood or brick, but built from shared effort from community. And then, as you stand among these traces, a strange yet familiar feeling rises in you, the feeling of continuity. You realize that the people who lived here once slept on this same stone floor, heard the same wind you heard, breathed in the same smoky air you're sensing now. They once sat right where you're standing, stretching their hands toward the fire to warm their frozen nails. Then they curled up beside one another to stay warm and drifted into sleep, the same restful sleep you wish you could have tonight. A quiet sentence drifts through your mind, soft, slow, almost whispered. They lived and slept here just like you. That realization warms you a little. You understand that history isn't something you learn only from books. It's something you feel through breath, through skin, through the gentle imagination that awakens in darkness. You pause and take a deep breath. It blends into the cave's air, as if touching the breath of thousands of years before you. And in that moment, you feel you are no longer standing alone. You are standing with an entire lineage of people who walked through time. And from far within the cave, where the darkness grows warm and the fire is about to spark to life, you hear a soft crackling sound calling you toward the beating heart of the long night. And just as you finish brushing the soft layer of ash from your fingertips, a faint sound rises from deep within the darkness, the tiny crack of a splitting ember, like someone whispering for you to come closer. It's the sound of fire, the sound of life, and you realize you're walking toward the true heart of the cave during winter nights, the flickering flame. You slow your pace, letting your eyes adjust to the warm glow spreading gently from the center of the cavern. The fire isn't large, it isn't wild or roaring. It simply dances in quiet, steady motions, casting a golden-orange light as soft as the wool shawl older folks wrap around their shoulders each evening. As you draw nearer, you see clearly the process ancient people used to kindle a flame, a small but sacred ritual repeated every single day. You imagine a pair of rough hands gripping two stones, striking them together. At first, just a tiny spark jumps out, flashes, then disappears. Then another, and another, until one spark finally catches on a bundle of dry moss. Those hands would move closer, cupping that fragile glow, giving it a breath as gentle as the one you'd blow across a steaming cup of tea to cool it. The spark swells, a soft puff escapes, and then, within a few trembling seconds, the fire begins to pulse, like a heart beating again after a long stillness. You sit down beside it. The ground is cold beneath you, but no longer biting. The heat from the fire spreads outward, touching your dry skin, slipping into your bloodstream, weaving into your breath. The cave changes the instant the fire warms your side. The shadows ease, the chill retreats, and the whole chamber seems to wake with that familiar coziness you once felt sitting near a fireplace on the first winter nights. Fire isn't only warm. Fire keeps predators away. You listen, and through the distant wind at the cave's entrance, you sense creatures lurking somewhere in the dark, beyond the glinting eyes of wolves, the heavy steps of a bear. But you also know this flame marks a boundary they will not cross. Fire is the earliest fence ever built by human hands, the first shield, still as effective now as it was then. Then you notice something else. The air inside the cave begins to dry. When fire burns, it pulls moisture away. That means your skin chills less, your clothes lose their dampness, and your sleep won't be disturbed by the kind of cold that crawls into your bones. Ancient people understood this instinctively. They didn't need science. They simply knew that if the fire burned, the whole group would sleep safer and deeper. And from this firelight, a rhythm of time was born. You sit there listening to the soft crackle, and it occurs to you that fire was humanity's first clock. When the flames dimmed, they knew it was time to add wood. When the glow softened, they knew it was time to lie down and sleep. The fire dictated when to eat, when to talk, when to drift into silence. You can feel that rhythm settling into you, slow, gentle, steady, like the heartbeat of someone sleeping peacefully beside you. And fire did something else, something even modern night lamps try to imitate it. Calmed the mind. In that tender glow, you feel your thoughts settle. The noise of modern life, the ringing phones, the bills, the work, the endless responsibilities all drift into the background. They step aside, leaving room for one simple sensation, the feeling of sitting still, of warmth, of breathing without having to defend yourself. You understand now that for our ancestors, Fire wasn't just light. It was story. It was companionship. It was the place everyone gathered after a long day. Adults murmured to each other. Children dozed nearby. No one needed philosophy or grand speeches. The flicker of flames alone was enough to make people feel they belonged to one another. And then a thought rises in you. No fire, no sleep. For ancient people, that was true in the most literal way. No fire, no warmth, no fire. Predators came close. No fire. Darkness swallowed everything. No fire. The long night became a threat. Realizing this makes the small flame before you feel enormous. It doesn't just preserve life. It preserves sleep, itself the very thing you're seeking tonight. You watch the flames for a long moment. Their golden-orange hue spreads across the stone walls, creating patches of shadow and light that rise and fall like the cave itself is breathing. And in that serene moment, you sense a gentle shift in the atmosphere. Behind you, from the floor layered with ash and straw, you hear a faint rustling, the sound of materials ancient people once used to craft the first beds they ever slept on inside these caves. And you know your journey is guiding you to the next part, to the place where early humans first discovered softness in the heart of a merciless winter. And as you sit close to that fire, letting its gentle warmth soak slowly into skin, chilled by the outside air, a faint sound rises behind you, the soft brushing of dry straw against itself, light and whispery, as if inviting you to turn around and witness the place where ancient humans found true sleep. That sound leads you to another corner of the cave, where the first beds of humankind were crafted from the simplest gifts nature offered. You walk slowly, letting each step touch the ground, layered with a thin sheet of ash. The firelight behind you glows just enough for you to see a mound of dried grass, gathered into a broad nest like a bird's nest, but meant for people. You kneel, gently touching that layer of grass. It feels soft, dry, carrying the faint leftover scent of summer sunlight. People of that time gathered materials for their beds with surprising care. On days when the cold loosened its grip, they walked through meadows and tied bunches of dried grass to store for later. When they came across patches of soft moss clinging to the rock face or growing beneath fallen logs, they carefully peeled it away, moss being a perfect natural insulator, like the soft lining you tuck into your winter slippers to keep your feet warm. And then there were the animal hides, the result of life or death hunts, not hunts for conquest, but for survival. When they removed the hides, they dried them, cleaned them, then laid them across the moss like a warm blanket for their bed. You can almost imagine their hands rough, calloused, but attentive, lifting each corner of the hide to check if it was dry enough, soft enough to lie on. Finally, they sprinkled a thin layer of ash across the surface, a simple but effective trick to repel insects, block moisture, and keep the bed clean. Ancient people had no mosquito spray, no modern heaters. They had ash, something that looked insignificant, but quietly protected them through countless winters. When you take in the entire structure, grass, moss, hide, thin ash, you see more than a bed. You see intention. Each layer placed not in haste, but with a deep understanding of nature knowledge passed from generation to generation. The bed wasn't built to look good or to impress, but to survive. And in that survival, early humans found emotional warmth as well. You slowly sit beside the bed. It's low, close to the ground, yet it carries a kind of intimate familiarity. Like the thin sleeping mats your grandparents once used, simple but clean, scented with dry straw. always the safest place to lie down at night. You press your hand into the moss layer beneath. It still has a gentle spring to it, as if nature shaped it specifically for humans to rest upon. The warmth trapped in the hide, the dryness of the grass, the powdery coolness of ash all blend together into a nest that anyone, after a long day facing the merciless winter, would long to curl up in. And as you sit there, you feel the deeper logic behind this design. It traps warmth. Thanks to the air pockets in the lower grass layer, it reduces moisture, because moss absorbs water yet blocks cold from rising. It deters insects, with the ash forming a subtle barrier that mosquitoes, ants, and other bugs hesitate to cross. A simple but ingenious solution, a testament to the human ability to adapt, from ancient times all the way to now. You take a deep breath, letting the natural scent of old hide, dry straw, and soft ash drift into you, all mingling into what might be called the fragrance of old homes. It isn't sweet like essential oils or modern candles, but it's instinctive, primal, comforting to anyone who has ever endured a long winter. In that moment, you understand that the bed kept more than bodies warm. It kept spirits warm, because when people lay down here, they weren't just sleeping. They were resting with the knowledge that they had done everything possible to protect one another, that they weren't alone, that tonight, in this cave, they had each other, and they had sleep. You imagine an early family settling onto this bed, children curled inside soft hides, adults lying close to share their warmth, firelight flickering across the face of someone already drifting to sleep. No one speaks. No one urges the others. Everyone simply knows this is the most peaceful moment of the day. As you sit beside that ancient bed, you hear the gentle fall of ash. The faint crackle of straw beneath your hand sounds so modest, yet so soothing, they seem to slow time itself, just as your shoulders relax and your head dips slightly, as if testing what it might feel like to lie on this ancient bed. A weak breeze slips in from the cave's entrance, carrying with it the distant call of a predator roaming the night. The sound doesn't frighten you. It simply reminds you that your journey is about to shift into another chapter 1, where the shadows of the hunters outside the cave became a natural part of human life in those early days. And as the distant howl fades until it feels like nothing more than a shadow of the winter night, you turn back toward the deeper part of the cave, where the fire still glows warmly, and the primitive bed rests, as if waiting for you to lie down. But before you truly settle in, something else makes you pause. The scent of the cave, a scent the ancients once gave a very gentle name, the breath of home. You inhale slowly, deeply. There's something remarkable about the smell inside a cave. It isn't pleasant in any modern sense. It doesn't resemble scented candles or essential oils or the fresh tang of newly cut pine wood. It's raw, damp, honest, as though the earth itself wants to tell you its own story. First, you notice the scent of wet stone, that mineral-rich smell so familiar from old wine cellars or the storage sheds elders once kept behind their homes. It isn't sharp or overwhelming. It lingers lightly in the air, settling on your skin like a soft, patient fog. The stone here has been breathing for thousands of years. It carries within it the history of winters, summers, and the very first footsteps of humans entering its darkness. Then you catch the scent of smoke, not fresh smoke, but the worn-in kind that settles after long nights. It clings to the rock walls, weaves through the layers of straw, rests on the fur bedding. A faint sting at the tip of your nose, but wrapped in a warmth that feels safe almost like those old log cabins that fill with firewood aroma during cold December nights. That smoky scent is proof of life. It tells you people once sat here, slept here, held their children close to make it through the cold. It's the smell of quiet conversations, of breath mingling with flame, of nights untouched by machinery, nights filled only with the sounds of humans and heartbeat. And finally, you notice the scent of animal hide, the warm, earthy trace of creatures that once ran across distant plains. When a hide is dried and placed beside a fire, it carries a specific smell, musky, a little wild, yet deeply familiar. To ancient people, that was the scent of survival, the scent of coats, of blankets, of sleep. When these three scents merge, mineral damp smoke hide, you understand instantly why the ancients called it the scent of home. Not because it was pretty, not because it was pleasant by modern standards, but because it was safe, because it belonged to tradition, to family, to nights guarded by fire and by one another. You think of the children of those ancient days. They grew up in caves, slept on straw beds, and every night they breathed in exactly what you're breathing now. To them, this wasn't strange, it was memory, much like how the elderly today remember the scent of a fireplace, or holiday baking, or the old coat their father used to wear. These smells slow the heart, soften the mind, turn danger quiet for a moment. The children of early humanity were the same. They understood the cave's scent as a signal that tonight would be all right, that winter winds could not reach them here, that the fire was still burning, and the adults were still awake, keeping watch. It was the smell that brought deep sleep, not because it was fragrant, but because it was familiar. You look around the cave now, feeling the symbolism settle around you. This scent is a reminder that humans have always known how to find comfort in the simplest things. No soft mattress, no nightlight, just a space that could hold them in stone, in smoke, in hide, in shared breath. You let your hand rest lightly against the cave wall, feeling the coolness seeping out from its rough surface. That coolness blends into the scent and gives you the impression that the space itself is breathing slow, deep, patient. That breath is steady, even like the gentle snore of someone sleeping beside you. It doesn't keep you awake. If anything, it softens your body, letting it ease down, bit by bit. You close your eyes for a few seconds, and suddenly, these scents remind you of something from your own life, maybe your childhood home, or the smell of your mother's coat, or the fireplace during your family's first cold evening of the year. Memories never disappear, they just wait for a scent to bring them back. And just like the ancients, you find connection here, even though you're standing inside a cave from tens of thousands of years ago. You open your eyes again, and you realize that within this blend of three scents, something is waiting for you, something that always comes once humans feel safe, warm, and sheltered. It's the tiny, steady sound of a droplet falling from the stone ceiling onto the cave floor, a soft, rhythmic drip that will guide you into the next chapter of this long winter night. And as the scents of minerals, smoke, and animal hide continue to settle gently into your breath, softening your body, the way a door closes quietly after a long day, a delicate sound from deep within the cave begins brushing against your hearing. The sound of a single drop of water falling onto stone. It isn't loud, not sharp, not startling. Instead, it's so soft you almost have to pause your own breathing to truly hear it, and in that pause, you realize something. This drip isn't just present here. It has been here for ages, a part of the cave's very breath. You turn your head, letting your eyes follow the sound. From high above, where moisture gathers slowly along the cave ceiling, you see a droplet forming, unhurried and patient. It swells with time, then releases, falling into a shallow puddle on the cave floor. The sound it makes is like the gentle tap of an ancient clock, not pushing you, not demanding attention, just reminding you that the night is passing according to its own quiet rhythm. You listen closer and notice that the drop has a very particular echo. The enclosed stone walls catch and soften the noise, letting it linger and deepen. It isn't just the sound of water falling, it's the sound of time echoing through stone. You close your eyes and instantly feel its effect. Your heart slows half a beat. Your breathing steadies, deepens the same way your body relaxes when you hear rain tapping on the roof during an autumn evening. Scientists today call this kind of sound white noise, the natural background rhythm that helps humans unwind and sleep deeply. But ancient people had no name for it. They only knew that when water dripped steadily through the night, everyone in the cave fell asleep more easily. You inhale slowly and exhale. And in that peaceful shift, the sound of the dripping becomes clearer, as if syncing itself to your own heartbeat. Each drop creates a pause, a tiny moment of stillness, a gentle reminder that sleep is not something to chase. It is something you slip into. In another corner of the cave, the fire still flickers. Together, fire and water form a kind of ancient duet, the crackle of flame, the drip of water weaving themselves into a primitive lullaby. Humanity has known since the beginning. When you open your eyes again, you see firelight reflected in the little pool below the drip. With every drop, the surface trembles, breaking the reflection into soft, slow circles of light, so tender and mesmerizing that your mind feels like a thin layer of snow melting under the first touch of morning sun. The ancient people must have felt exactly this, lying down on their bed of straw, moss, and hide, their heads resting on their hands, their eyes drifting toward the fire, their ears following the water's rhythm. They knew that nature itself was lulling them to sleep in the simplest, purest way. The water wasn't only soothing. It helped them forget their fear of the dark, the fear of predators outside, the fear of cold creeping into their bones, the fear of a night that might never end. But when the drip came steady, one drop after another, those fears dissolved. The way breath fades gently across still water. You can almost imagine primitive children curled beside their mothers, arms wrapped around soft hides. The drip of cave water was their lullaby, a song without words, without melody, yet strong enough to guide them into dreams. They grew up with that sound, remembered it all their lives, and cherished it as the voice of home. To the elders of that time, the drip meant the cave was alive. Each drop whispered that nature was still here, still moving, still guarding them. Through that calm, they felt they belonged not as visitors, but as family. Right now, even as a modern soul, you feel the same. You don't need to understand everything, you only need to feel. And the sound of dripping water helps you do exactly that. Naturally, honestly, deeply. You let the sound drift through you, echoing in the quiet hollowness of the night. It's so soft you can almost picture the shape of the sound itself, a small point falling, spreading into a ring, then fading into darkness. Fire and water, one warm, one cold, somehow harmonize here, creating a primordial lullaby. No lyrics, No instruments, no technology, just the presence of the world's oldest elements. Your shoulders relax a little more as you lean into the warm air. And just then, as you feel yourself merging with the rhythm of this cave night, you hear another sound near the entrance, the faint shift of wind changing direction, signaling that something is moving outside in the dark. Not danger, just another part of the world you're about to step into in the next chapter, where smoke, the uncomfortable yet steadfast companion of early humans, becomes a quiet shield between them and the wild. And as the steady drip of water continues falling onto stone, blending with the gentle crackle of the fire into the soft music of the night, you suddenly notice something else, something that had been here from the very beginning, unmistakable, yet only now does your body fully register it. The faint smoke drifting through the air. It doesn't arrive with surprise, not hurried, not forceful. It simply drifts outward, unhurried, like the cave's own breath, gently curling around you. You inhale and immediately feel that light sting along the bridge of your nose. You exhale and sense a mild scratch in your throat. Smoke, in its most natural form, always makes the body react just a little. The ancients knew this. You know this too. It's uncomfortable, but familiar. And more importantly, it's necessary. You tilt your gaze upward toward the cave ceiling, where the smoke gathers into a thin, even layer across the gray stone. Under the firelight, the blackened soot becomes visible, etched like the remnants of thousands of nights, thousands of fires burned and extinguished, thousands of people living and sleeping beneath this roof of rock, leaving their story behind in soot. You study the darkened ceiling and understand that smoke is a witness to time. No one intended it to linger. It's simply the result of warmth, of life, of the relentless effort to survive. You reach your hand toward the lower stone wall, not blackened entirely, but still stained with the memory of old smoke. The surface is rough, faintly warm, and feels as if you're touching a quiet page of a journal written over centuries. But before your thoughts wander too far, you take another breath, and the faint sting brings a soft blink to your eyes. A natural reaction, one that anyone living beside fire would have felt. The ancient people felt it, too. Smoke stung their eyes. Smoke scratched their throats. Smoke made them cough lightly when the wind shifted and blew it inward. But the most important truth, smoke protected them. Smoke kept mosquitoes away. Smoke drove insects off. Smoke warmed the air. Smoke deterred small creatures, snakes, and venomous pests from creeping near the sleeping area. Every night in the cave, smoke was the invisible curtain nature offered to those who knew how to keep a fire alive. You watch the drifting smoke rise in soft curls, glowing faintly in the firelight. It moves slowly, flowing like a tiny river suspended in the air. And you realize the ancients accepted, even appreciated this discomfort, because in a world with no glass windows, no insulation, no repellents, a scratchy throat was better than being bitten awake by insects. A bit of watering eyes was better than letting creatures wander into the sleeping space. A breath of smoky air was gentler than the damp cold that could make bones ache through the night. Human bodies of that era adapted to smoke in the most natural way. They breathed it daily. They ate beside it. They slept near it. They treated it as a part of life, inseparable, unquestioned. You imagine a primitive family sitting around the fire, the father turning meat over the flame, the mother drying animal hides, children playing with ash, coughing lightly, laughing anyway. No one frustrated, no one frowning. They accepted smoke the way we accept the sound of televisions, passing cars, or wind through the window at night. In that era, smoke was life. With smoke and fire, humans could sleep without fear of whatever prowled in the darkness. You sit still, watching the smoke drift upward into the darkened layers overhead. Each layer marks a year, a season, a generation. Those stones may have watched children grow into adults, and then into elders. They heard their laughter, their quiet conversations, their steady breathing, and at times, their cries for loved ones lost to harsh winters, and all of it soaked into the scent of smoke. You suddenly understand why the ancient people felt safe when smoke was present. Because smoke stayed with them through everything. Because smoke meant the fire was alive, and fire meant life. As long as there was smoke, the group would be all right. You draw in a slow breath, feeling the smoky air brush through your chest. As you exhale, your ribs loosen. Your heartbeat slows just slightly. Even with its sting, smoke soothes you, in its own primitive, honest way. A lullaby made not of sweetness, but of survival. You lift your gaze again, watching the smoke merge into the cave's dark ceiling, then fade away, much like a heavy thought dissolving as your head sinks gently into a pillow. And in that quiet moment, another sound drifts in from the world outside, a long breath of wind, carrying the faint footsteps of some creature passing by, beyond the entrance. Not rushing, not threatening, just a reminder that the winter night still lies beyond, and that you are about to step into the next part of this journey, the chapter where those within the cave gather close, sharing warmth to survive the cold. And as the last wisps of smoke disappear into the dark ceiling of the cave, you hear another sound from the deep right corner, the soft shift of someone moving against straw and animal hide, as gentle as dry leaves brushing in a passing breeze. The sound doesn't alert you. Instead, it feels familiar, like the cave itself is settling into the warmest moment of the night, the hour when everyone lies down together. You turn your head, letting your eyes adjust to the warm darkness beyond the firelight. There, you see the silhouettes of a few people curling into themselves, pulling hides closer to their bodies, lying close enough to share their heat. No one speaks, no one rushes. Every movement is slow, soft, as if the cave is breathing quietly with them. You walk more gently now, moving closer to that corner. A faint warmth reaches you not from the fire, but from the people themselves. In your modern world, warmth comes from technology. In their world, warmth came from breathing together, watching them. Your heart slows down a little. These early humans, after a long day facing wind, cold, and nameless dangers, finally found safety, not in luxuries, but in each other. You lower yourself and sit near them. The cave floor beneath you feels slightly damp, but the presence of people around you makes the space strangely warm. You hear the soft chorus of their breaths, not perfectly in sync, but steady enough to make you feel they're walking the night in the same rhythm. Someone shifts. The straw rustles lightly. A half-asleep child wiggles closer to its mother. Two arms brush against one another, not out of habit, but from the instinct of a species that learned early on, closeness means survival. You realize this is the primal purpose of huddled sleep. In a brutal winter, a lone body loses heat fast, but a group pressed together holds warmth like a creature made of many hearts. One person's heat fills the other's cold, and when everyone breathes in a shared rhythm, the temperature in the cave rises even without adding more wood to the fire. You reach out and touch the hide spread over the shared bed. It still holds the warmth of those who lay there earlier, and you feel unmistakably that this warmth is more than physical. It is presence. It is trust. It is a reminder that in this ancient darkness, humans were never truly alone. You try to see it through the eyes of someone from long ago, on winter nights, when they lay beside each other. They weren't just resting. They were giving life to one another. An elderly hand lightly brushing the hand of a child. A mother shifting so her body blocks the wind for her little one. A weary hunter returning from the day's search for food, listening to the steady breathing of the people he loves and knowing he still has a family to protect. You hear a soft exhale from the oldest member of the group. His breath is slow, deep, steady, like someone who has survived many winters and lived to see more dawns than the young around him. Beside him are younger adults and children, forming a natural circle of protection without needing instruction. In the thin darkness before you, you realize something. The sleep of ancient humans was never solitary. It was the sleep of a collective, a family, a community moving slowly, steadfastly, held together by trust. Of course, huddled sleep wasn't perfect. You hear someone turn a bit too abruptly, and the straw rustles louder. A child shifts and kicks lightly against whoever lies nearby. Occasionally there's a soft cough or a sigh from someone still drifting toward rest. The space is cramped, thick with shared breath, and privacy barely exists. But when you take in the whole scene, you understand immediately why these tiny inconveniences didn't matter. Because what they received in return was survival, warmth, the reassurance that when they slipped into sleep, someone was right there. Their hand could find another hand. Their breath could mingle with another's breath, whispering softly, "You're safe now. Just close your eyes." You inhale slowly. The warmth radiating from the group seems to reach your chest as well, stirring memories of your own childhood evenings when your family gathered around a fireplace, shared blankets, talking softly while the winter wind howled outside. The memory doesn't wake you. It settles you. Then you look around and understand that this huddled closeness didn't only keep bodies warm. It kept memories warm. It kept connection alive. It preserved the instinct to care, an instinct that followed humanity across hundreds of thousands of years. In this ancient, simple scene, you feel a deep truth without needing words. Some warmth doesn't come from fire. It comes from each other. And just as that thought settles into you, a low sound drifts in from beyond the caves, entrance the heavy, measured steps of a predator passing by. Not urgent, not threatening, just a reminder that the wild night still exists outside. Your breath slows a little, and you know you're about to step into the next part of this journey outside the cave, where predators roam and shadows linger. Yet fire and human warmth remain the strongest walls ever built. And as you rest quietly within the warmth of the people huddled beside you, feeling the peace that spreads from the steady rhythm of their breathing, the wind at the cave entrance suddenly carries in a low, drawn-out sound. You open your eyes not out of fear, but because some ancient instinct gently tugs you awake. You tilt your head toward the cave mouth, letting your ears listen more closely. Outside, the wind sweeps across the snowy ground, creating soft rustling noises like someone flipping through the pages of a very old book. Gusts kick up loose snow, tapping it against the rock face with small sharp clicks, like a pencil striking the bottom of a glass in a long-forgotten home. Then, rising above all that, comes the long, echoing howl of a wolf. It reverberates through the mountain pass, bounces across the stone walls, and drifts into the cave entrance like a thin, icy thread, weaving through the darkness. It doesn't shout. It doesn't lunge. It simply announces an ancient truth I am passing through. I am hunting. You inhale slowly, feeling the faint cold touch your face before the cave's warm air washes it away. In that moment, you sense clearly the primal fear early humans carried. Fear that didn't come from thought, but from the instinct to survive. You sit still, letting your eyes adjust to the darkness beyond the reach of the fire. Out there, where the flame doesn't touch, you see shifting shadows. No distinct shapes, no clear outlines, just drifting patches of darkness sliding across the snow like restless spirits. Sometimes the shadow is large, like a bear sniffing for scent, sometimes slender and low, like a wolf lowering its head to test the air. In a winter night, hunger leads their steps. They follow warmth, follow scent, follow the smallest vulnerability. You listen to your heartbeat. It isn't fast, not frantic, because here, in the heart of this brutal winter, you're not alone. You look back into the cave. Behind you is fire, the steady, pulsing flame beating like the shared heart of everyone inside. Its glow spreads in a soft circle, carving the world into two realms. This side, safety. The other side, the wild unknown. That flame's maul stubborn, unwavering is the invisible wall predators hesitate to cross. You turn back to the entrance, and something becomes clear. Those shadows stop just short of the fire's boundary. They move slow, careful as though testing the air. But whenever the flame flickers brighter, they retreat a few steps, their pale yellow eyes vanishing into the black. You realize that for ancient humans, fire wasn't just warmth or light. Fire was the only fortress standing between them, and the danger lurking every night. Another howl rises, but this time it's farther away, as if the predators have continued their wandering, recognizing that the beings inside this cave are too well defended, protected by something they instinctively fear. A gentle calm spreads through your chest, soft as that old wool blanket someone once wrapped around you in childhood. It carries a message. As long as the fire lives, you are safe. As long as the flame breathes, the footsteps outside are simply part of the night, not a threat. You sit quietly, watching the cave mouth, feeling the sacred boundary between two worlds, out there wind, snow, hunting shadows, and the unforgiving instinct of survival. In here a fire, human warmth, beds of straw, the steady breath of a bonded group. You suddenly understand that our ancestors didn't survive because of brute strength. They survived because they created safety together. You close your eyes for a few seconds. The wind still howls. The occasional wolf cry rises and falls like a distant memory, but none of it tightens your chest. It simply creates a soft backdrop to the night, a soundtrack that makes the cave's warmth feel even closer. You exhale slowly. At that exact moment, the space inside the cave seems to draw in around you, gently embracing you. And through the deepened stillness of the night, you hear a very subtle movement, the sound of something solid being set down beside you, as though someone has just checked a vital tool after hearing the predator outside. It is the sound of a weapon placed within reach, prepared for danger, yet quiet enough to lull you back toward sleep. And just as the sound of a spear or stone tool being set gently beside you fades into silence, you notice the fire in the cave growing clearer, almost brighter, as if every noise outside existed solely to remind you of the warmth within. You turn your gaze toward the flames, And that's when you begin to notice something remarkable, the shadows moving along the cave wall, slow and soft, full of shifting shapes. The fire no longer flares the way it did when it was first lit. It glimmers now, rising and falling, like a chest, breathing in the slow rhythm of a winter night. That rhythm, the steady swell and release, creates countless, long and short silhouettes on the stone wall, shapes that early humans once regarded as a small miracle in every night of shelter. You sit closer, letting the glow sweep gently across your face. On the rough stone surface, dark shapes stretch, shrink, and break into pieces. No pattern, no plan, just the spontaneous dance of fire, turning shadow into story. And then, like a quiet game of imagination, figures begin to appear in the darkness. When the flame leans slightly to the left, a large shadow emerges, the broad shape of a bison, lowering its head on some distant plain. When the flame bends to the right, the shape dissolves into a human face, its features soft and blurred, like a memory too old to hold clearly. Then another long shadow rises, tall and still, reminiscent of a mountain ridge, calling to mind those far-off lands humans crossed before finding this cave. You watch silently and realize something: our ancestors saw these shifting forms as the first cinema of humankind. No screens, no pre-made images, just fire and imagination. You picture the children of those ancient nights sitting cross-legged before the flames, eyes wide, pointing at the shifting walls, telling their own stories. One child whispering, "That looks like the big beast father hunted." Another chiming in, "There, that's the mountain where we found berries." And the adults smiling, weary, warm smiles after a long day, adding their own steady voices to the tale. Perhaps they spoke of winter migrations, perhaps of ancient rivers, perhaps of the herds they once followed for food, all of it drawn from those vague, suggestive shapes on the wall. In the half-light, half-darkness, shadow became language, a way to preserve memory, a canvas where imagination grew alongside time. You watch more closely and understand something deeper. These stories weren't just entertainment. They soothed the fear of darkness, that primal fear shared by every creature living through a winter night. Instead of letting the dark swallow their thoughts, early humans turned it into a companion, a game, a story. They used fire to sketch familiar shapes onto the walls, making the darkness feel less foreign, less frightening, less vast. You feel that truth as you look at the backs of the sleeping figures. They don't sleep with arms crossed defensively. They sleep leaning toward one another, backs turned outward, as if trusting that fire and shadow will alert them if something changes. Because in the raw experience of early life, fire was the teacher, darkness the student, and the shadows were the soft script written by flame to remind humanity that they were still here, still alive. You lift your hand toward the fire, letting your own shadow appear on the wall. Your silhouette stretches, trembles with the fire's pulse, and in that moment, you feel yourself doing precisely what people have done on countless nights before. An invisible connection across time, a bridge between now and then, between you and them. You study the outline of your hand, soft, breathing, and feel a gentleness settling in your mind. That calm comes from no longer seeing darkness as an enemy, but as a space where imagination can take root, just as our ancestors once allowed it to. In this space, every shape is a story. Every flicker can become a memory. Every shadow can turn into a quiet companion. You breathe out softly, leaning a little closer to the fire, not for warmth, but to listen more closely to the movement of shadows on stone, like the faintest whispers of your ancestors. And as your head tilts downward, settling closer to the bed of straw, moss, and hide, you sense something else, something every cave sleeper kept within reach during the long winter nights. A weapon always close at hand, the instinctive companion of survival in the ancient dark. And as the shadows on the cave wall slowly fade into the quiet of the dying fire, your imagination softens too, settling like an underground stream, shifting gently beneath layers of stone. It's in that calm, hushed moment that you hear a small sound, as if someone has lightly turned a solid object against the cave floor. You glance down and see it beside the sleeping form of an early human lies a stone-tipped spear. It rests there quietly, not cold or menacing the way modern minds picture weapons, but calm, almost like part of the bed, part of the night, part of the person who sleeps beside it. You lean in to look more closely. The faint firelight glints off the spear's tip, revealing small chips and worn edges, marks left by a long day of labor and survival. Next to it lies a stone knife, rough but strong, tucked neatly into a crevice within easy reach of its owner. Each tool placed so close that a hand could find it with the faintest movement. This custom wasn't a rule. It wasn't taught. It wasn't spoken. It was instinct shaped by thousands of winters. You try to imagine yourself in their place. A long night, wind howling, predators that could appear at any moment. Fire held danger at bay. Yes, but not absolutely. In such a world, humans needed something even closer than flame, something that responded instantly to the slightest shift in the dark. And so the weapon stayed within arm's reach, not to boast, not to threaten, but to whisper a simple, ancient truth. If something happens, they will rise in an instant to protect themselves, their family, their sleeping community. Your eyes fall on the spear again, and you suddenly feel something deeper to these people. A weapon wasn't just a tool of defense, it was a companion. By day, it hunted meat, dug roots, broke ice, sparked fire, split wood. By night, it lay beside them like a loyal friend who never slept. The meaning of a weapon in the ancient world wasn't violence, it was responsibility. Like the old wooden cane your elders once leaned on, always there to steady them. To remind them they still had strength, still had the ability to rise against danger. You look at the cracked, weathered hand of the person sleeping nearby. Their fingers, smudged with ash and soil, curl slightly as if still holding the spear's shape from daylight hours. That hand has hunted, gathered, defended, fed the others in the cave, and it rests near the weapon, not from fear, but from the steady habit of duty. Maybe this feels familiar to you, because even in the modern world, there were nights in winter when your father or grandfather placed a sturdy stick by the door, or left shoes beside the bed, ready to rise if a strange noise stirred the dark. That instinct stretches back much farther than memory. You draw a slow breath. The last wisps of smoke brush your nose, a little sharp but not unpleasant. The steady breathing of the people curled together blends with the soft crackle of fading fire, warming the air in a way that's subtle, almost tender. And among every warmth, every shadow, every small sound, the weapon remains the still point. It rests quietly, prepared, without asking, without moving. A humble presence with immense importance. You place your fingers on the spear's shaft. It's rough, yet warm, holding the last traces of heat from the hand that carried it through the day. In that warmth, You feel the dual purpose of the weapon, a tool of work by day, a shield by night. Without it, humans could not have survived these long winters. With it, they could lie down in peace, knowing that if a growl or heavy footstep echoed from outside, they would not simply wait, they would stand and respond. You lift your gaze toward the cave entrance. The wind still brings in cold air, and somewhere out in the dark, a distant howl rises again farther than before. Not a threat now, just a reminder that the wild world continues living on its own terms. But inside the cave, everything is ready for the long night. Fire, straw beds, shared breath, smoke, water drops, dancing shadows, and the weapon each playing its part, weaving together the ancient safety of this shelter. You exhale more slowly. Your heartbeat softens. Your back relaxes as it leans into the warm stone. And just as you feel yourself begin to drift into sleep alongside them, a soft sound reaches you. Someone shifting gently, pulling an animal hide closer around their shoulders. A quiet, familiar movement. And you know you're about to step into the next stage, where the long sleep of winter drapes itself over everything in a deep, peaceful stillness. And as your hand brushes lightly against the spear shaft, still warm in the darkness, its steady presence calms you in a strangely comforting way, as if a loyal companion were silently keeping watch through the night. But then, as the fire dwindles, and every sound softens into a gentle layer laid across the entire cave, you notice something else. The space around you is beginning to slow, to deepen, as though winter itself were lowering the rhythm of human life. You tilt your head toward the cave entrance, toward the night spilling down the mountainside. Winter nights always fall early. Daylight, scarce as it is, sweeps by in only a handful of hours before giving way to a long, thick, freezing dark. And that lack of light shaped the rhythm of early humans. They didn't fight nature, they adapted in the most natural way by sleeping more. You look at the people resting around you. Some have been asleep for a long time, their breaths steady like rolling waves. Others are only now sinking into the thick animal hides, eyelids drifting closed as if waiting for sleep to pull them under. They don't force wakefulness. They don't resist their biology. They let winter lead. You ease down beside them and feel winter's slowness seeping into your own body. Not as heaviness, but as a gentle surrender, as though sleep is a quiet craftsman laying an invisible blanket over each muscle. In the ancient world, winter sleep wasn't like modern sleep. It was longer, deeper, and sometimes divided in two. You picture the scene tens of thousands of years ago, early humans slipping into their first sleep as soon as darkness arrives, sometimes even in the late afternoon. They slept for several hours, then naturally woke in the peaceful middle of the night. This wakeful period wasn't insomnia. It was part of their rhythm. They rose softly, without worry, tended the fire, adjusted the straw beds, or whispered to one another in the dark. Some watched the fire glow low. Some revisited old memories. Some smoothed the hair of a child sleeping deeply beside them. Then, once the fire reached the right glow and the warmth of the cave settled again, they drifted into their second sleep, long and deep, like winter's embrace pulling the whole community into its arms. You close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself stepping into that interval between two sleeps, where the stillness is so profound you can hear your heartbeat blending with the quiet breathing of the fire. In that middle stretch of night, the mind becomes softer, wider, ready to dream dreams too delicate for the daytime. And that is when winter dreams came to them, dreams rich with imagery, layered with depth, bursting with imagination, because their minds weren't interrupted by lights, devices, or noise. Only darkness, warmth, and the safety of the cave as their backdrop. You can feel that truth in your chest, a vague but real sensation, as though the memory of your ancestors is whispering through your bloodstream, guiding you toward that slower rhythm. You open your eyes and look around the cave. No one is rushing. No one is forcing themselves to work after dark. The entire family, the entire small community, moves slowly, softly, using little energy, as if all of them are entering a gentle kind of hibernation modern humans have long forgotten. A child curls deeper into the hides, cheeks faintly flushed from shared warmth. An elder lies on their side, hand resting on their chest, as if feeling their own heartbeat in the quiet. A young man sleeps with his head on his forearm, peaceful, despite knowing tomorrow may demand everything of him again. You sense that the family's rhythm is the rhythm of nature itself. No one resists the winter. No one tries to push beyond their limits. They live and sleep exactly as the season asks. And by doing so, they save energy, preserve strength, and avoid exhaustion in these long months when food is scarce and the cold relentless. You rest your head on the hide beneath you, feeling its softness and warmth, the scent of ash, moss, and fur blending like a wordless lullaby. Winter sleep asks for only one thing: surrender. No fighting, no tightening, no overthinking, just allowing the body to do what it knows. You inhale deeply, feeling the cave's air slow with the breathing of those around you. Somewhere near the cave entrance, snow drifts down with a faint, paper-like sound. Water still drips from the stone ceiling in its patient rhythm. And when you exhale slow enough to feel weightless, you know you are approaching a very special doorway of the winter night, where darkness, warmth, and dreams come together to form humanity's oldest cradle. And as winter's long, slow rhythm begins wrapping the entire cave in a velvet-like quiet, you feel the night sinking into its deepest moment. Every sound seems to thicken, settle, and soften, as though nature itself has closed its eyes and started breathing with you. In that stillness, you notice something strange, yet profoundly familiar. Everything around you, the fire, human warmth, darkness, the scent of fur, the dripping water is blending into one ancient cradle of humankind. You open your eyes, just a little, catching the flicker of the tiny remaining flame. It no longer dances fiercely. It glows gently, like a small star trying to keep itself awake in the depths of night. That faint glow touches the stone walls, making the shadows tremble and slide downward like a river of fading light. Darkness takes over more of the space, but it isn't frightening. Instead, it drapes the cave like a heavy blanket, wrapping everything in a quiet warmth. You take a soft breath in, and the scent of the cave, the scent that has followed humanity for tens of thousands of years, fills your chest. It's the scent of damp stone, smoke soaked into cracks, warm animal hide still holding the memory of human touch, and the thin layer of ash spread across the ground to keep away insects. Together, these scents create something unusual, not sweet, not perfumed, but comforting, not beautiful by modern standards, but deeply calming. A scent that tells you why children of the ancient world once called caves home. You slowly turn your body, letting your back rest into the soft hide beneath you, beside you. The warmth from those sleeping close spreads naturally toward you. It doesn't overwhelm. It doesn't smother. It feels exactly like someone laying a gentle hand on your shoulder on a cold day, quiet reassurance without a single word. You close your eyes, and everything begins to melt into one. The steady dripping of water from the stone ceiling, the soft breathing of the group, the tiny crackle of fading fire, the distant whisper of wind outside, fading like cloth being pulled gently across the night. As these sounds blend, you realize you can no longer tell which belong to the cave and which come from your own body. Everything becomes one ancient lullaby, holding you suspended between wakefulness and sleep. In this moment, the cave is no longer just a shelter. It becomes something like a mother round, warm, enclosing you, shielding you from the cold wind, the distant wolf howls, and the vast uncertainties of the world outside. You lie there, small but safe, the way a child curls into the arms of someone they trust completely. In this soothing darkness, you suddenly think of your ancestors, the ones who endured winters far harsher than this. They have slept in caves the way you're sleeping now. They have listened to dripping water the way you're listening. They have felt warmth from one another the way it spreads into you now. And then you understand something. This harmony isn't just from this moment. It's something that traveled through generations, a thread connecting you to people from a time before written words, before cities, before the artificial glow of lights. You don't need to be a historian to feel this thread. All you need to do is breathe a little slower and let your body speak for your mind. You hear your heartbeat, slow, steady, almost perfectly matching the rhythm of this ancient night. And in that brief glimmer of perception, you feel a simple truth. Humans, no matter the age, seek warmth, need shelter, and long for peaceful sleep. You open your eyes again, very slowly, watching the ember glow like a sleepy firefly. The faces around you are soft, calm, untouched by worry or fear. The cave has become a sanctuary where every burden of the winter day has been set down, leaving only quiet life, simple and kind. You draw a deep breath, letting the peace move into every corner of your chest. Then you exhale, long and slow, like laying down an invisible weight onto the stone floor. Only softness remains. Now the darkness isn't an unfamiliar thing. It becomes your companion. Warmth is no longer something to chase. It becomes the gentle home that wraps around you. Dreams are no longer distant. They're beside you now, like a hand reaching out to hold you from behind. You close your eyes, not because you must sleep, but because your body is finally ready to sink into the deepest rest of the winter night. And in that final fragile moment, when the fire is nothing more than a warm point of dim light, you feel the entire space stone, breath, heat, shadow, smoke, water, blending into one vast cradle. A cradle that holds you in warmth and trust. A cradle where you can set aside every worry of the modern world. A cradle where your ancestors once slept and where you now sleep with them, across the gulf of thousands of years. You breathe out slowly and let your eyes fully close. The cave holds you, the winter night holds you, and sleep drifts toward you very close now. When we look back at how our ancestors slept in those cold stone caves of ancient winter, we start to realize something important. What carried them through wasn't just the fire, or the animal hides, or the spear kept within reach. It was the way they lived slow, lived close, and lived in rhythm with nature. They didn't have warm blankets, soft mattresses, or modern heating. But they had one another. They had shared breath, shared warmth, the scent of smoke, and the nearness of human presence to push back fear and keep each other safe. Our ancestors understood that true strength didn't come from constant struggle, but from resting at the right moments, from knowing how to pause, conserve energy, and move forward only when the body was ready. And that is a lesson we can carry into our own lives today. In a modern world overflowing with noise, speed, and endless demands, sometimes what we need isn't more momentum, but a slower rhythm to return to ourselves. A deep breath, a quieter evening with the lights turned low, a moment sitting close to someone we love without needing to say anything. A night of sleep that comes not from forcing rest, but from letting go. If early humans could sleep deeply in the harshest winters of our past, then you, too, can rediscover your own calm. All it takes is giving your mind a moment of stillness. Thank you for joining me in tonight's journey. If this video brought you comfort and you'd like to continue exploring more of these gentle, history-soaked lullabies, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the next one. Wishing you a sleep that's deep, warm, and peaceful.